Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to the extra time segment where we are looking back on Everton's 2-1 away win at Selhurst Park against Crystal Palace. I'm joined by Terry and Owen. Spirits are very high, 3 wins out of 3 in the Premier League. You can't argue with that. Lads, how are you feeling? Terry, we'll start with you, mate. How are you feeling?
Feeling good. It's they're my favourite type of wins in a way. Like you can have the wins like Fleetwood, where for the bulk of the game we're just in command and we're playing great football and little triangles of passes. But then there's those away wins where you've got to dig in, you've got to shit house your way, and you've got to you've got to battle, you've got to scrap, you've got to get sly fouls and waste time on free kicks. They are just as satisfying to me because you feel such elation when you get them, and that's what today's game was. There was some good moments of football, but I think the biggest thing to take away was the character, the mentality of the players. It's a million miles from what we saw after the lockdown. Just a real commitment to wanting to get the result, and it's come from the manager again. His Ancelotti's away record is a completely different world to what it was before he arrived. We've won back-to-back away games. I'm over the moon, made up.
It's excellent. I mean, of course, I think, how many away games did we win in total last season, for starters?
I mean, with the all under Carlo, I think we won 1 under Silver at Southampton. Was that right?
Yeah, and then I think there was about 3 or 4 under Carlo.
Yeah, Newcastle away. Newcastle away, Watford away. It's something that's been a problem for the club for a couple of years, but across different managers, and Carlo's just come in and just literally within one swoop just went, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. We're not losing these away games, because away games are a lot about the mentality, and he's changed the mentality of a lot of players this season, and it's showing great attitudes. And yeah, they're just, how good does it feel to win an away game at a
2 away games in a row, 2 away wins in a row.
Yeah, and I know the stadiums are empty, but Palace is a hard place to go and a hard team to play. They're very, very.
I said this in my instant reaction before. I absolutely despise playing against Crystal Palace.
A good team, they're a good team, and he gave us a real good game today, and they were very unlucky not to get anything out of it. I'm sure we'll come to the.
I thought so myself. It's.
Go on.
Go on. I'll let Owen say his piece. I know he's you're usually quite a big fan of Crystal Palace, aren't you? And their style, and you always like the hard to beat sides, don't you? So is it good to see us overcome one of those?
Yeah, I like the way they work. I said before the game on Twitter, I said this will be a really tough game. I like how these operate. I like how they play, and there was no surprises from me from Crystal Palace today. I thought the first half they sat quite deep, and I thought there was so many opportunities. If we just picked the final ball, we could have been a couple of goals ahead, and I was really impressed with how we started the first 45 minutes. We controlled the ball really well. They were difficult, still limited us to as much as they could without getting near us, really, I thought. And then, because we got hammers on the ball, Richarlison, Luca Dean, brilliant again today, Coleman the other side. I thought we were faultless, Dom up front. And then the second half came, we had that 2-1 goal advantage, and then we sort of Palace in the sense in the second half of the fact that we were really resolute, we were tough to beat, and as the game ran on, they struggled to break us down, especially when Eze came off. I think he'd run a bit out of steam, Eze, and then so Roy took him off for Batshuayi, just getting another body up front, and then they lost their rhythm bit in terms of their passing lanes. But again, I was really happy with that result, because that's a tough place to go. Not many teams will go there and win this season.
Absolutely. And in that sense, do you think we beat Palace at their own game a little bit in that second half?
In the second half, yeah. I think in the first half we had 70% of the ball the first half, and really controlled them, really did well. Great triangle passing and that, and then second half it was just about the other side of the game. They given everything, and I'm really pleased with that, and long may it continue, because I'm more for that side of the game, digging in, I thought Keane and Mina won everything in the air. Then big, strong centre forwards up front. I thought that's a real
tough ask.
If we go to the likes of Palace, Newcastle, Burnley, and that this season and get them results, we'll go from a team that's mid-table to a top 4 team, because top 4 teams really are the only teams who go to them grounds and win. If we think look historically, I think especially Burnley, don't think many teams outside the top 6 of any when they're in one of their own grounds, apart from Brighton at the end of the season. So they're going to them grounds are tough. If we start going to these grounds and winning, that takes us up a real level, because they're a tough game, really well organised team, and they'll have no issues this season.
I think we were having a little discussion before this game, just before this show, that about all this talk about playing football the right way and all that baloney. And let's be honest, it's one of them. These teams do make life difficult for sides who try and attack. It's always a pleasing result to overcome these sides, and you can do it, and you can say they're hard to beat, and it's none of that patronising pat on the back stuff we talk about when you talk about these playing the right way sort of teams, like this sort of narrative the media peddles. Yeah, it's one of those with the media. I think it's more they like to see the best sides win, or like to say the sides that they like to win games, and I think it's this sort of phrase they use now to put these sort of teams down. But Crystal Palace are anything but anti-football, aren't they? I don't like to admit it, but they dominated us at times in that second half.
Yeah, I've read. Thing is, people think, and I know we're talking about Everton and how pleased we are with our results, but people think Roy Hodgson's a long ball manager, and that's the biggest disservice you could do Roy Hodgson, because his teams, while they sit deep at times and they defend well, they do play some nice football in terms of when they're on the ball in the final third. And so it was always going to be difficult in the second half with their tackling talent. I think Eze, Batshuayi, Zaha, Ayew, all these players, and then you've got the two in the middle.
Good players.
They're good players. They've got good footballers, and not many will go there and win. And I'm really pleased that we have gone and won there, because that's a big marker. I think West Brom are now, I think they're winning currently. I don't know where it'll end up as when it comes out, but West Brom with Spurs, the way we want to play going forward, I think the West Broms of the world will probably suit us more than the Palaces, and to one Palace as well. I'm really pleased now. I know Brian's next week, and we'll probably get beaten 9-0. Now I've said this, but Brian should play in our hands the way they play out from the back.
That's going to be an interesting contest, the Brighton game. But obviously, with this in mind, I mean, Crystal Palace is always a fixture for me, that, especially Crystal Palace away, it's always a fixture, one out the way. So I'm glad we've got out the way with 3 points in the bag. It's like you say, it's such a difficult place to go, and I think we should be very pleased with the fact that we've come out of it with 3 points, because like you say, Owen, it's not very often sides outside the top 4 at least go there and get the result.
And if they do, they don't get it easy.
If they do, absolutely. Well, we didn't get it easy today. I thought this is definitely the hard, and we said this in the preview as well, didn't we, that this would be the hardest fixture that we faced, and well, so far, and it has proven to be the case. It was a really scrappy affair. We got over the line courtesy of an interesting penalty, shall we say. We're just going to touch on that. Owen, what do you make of the penalty decision? Is it the right decision, wrong decision? What is it?
I can understand why Roy Hodgson doesn't think it's a penalty, because in yesterday, I don't think it is a penalty, and as we go forward, I really don't want that to be a penalty.
In the VAR era, it's a penalty, isn't it?
In this mad, crazy world we live in with VAR at the moment, and decision.
Was it Weasel Hadron Collider
era? Yeah, in this weird world we live in with VAR, and anything's a penalty, and anything that is a penalty isn't a penalty. It probably is a penalty, and that's unfortunate to say, but if Lindelof's last week's was a penalty, then unfortunately that is from Joe Ward. I wouldn't if I was the referee, I wouldn't give it, but I suppose they can only go with what they've got. I can understand the frustration, but
I mean, Palace will be wound up But of course, like you say, they got one against Manchester United for the same thing last week. So it does, in that sense, it's evening itself out. Leon Osman on Amazon Prime today said that people won't be as aggrieved with these kinds of decisions as long as there's consistency, and are we seeing that hopefully?
But then there was the Gabriel one, but I suppose that was where it kind of wasn't it, on his arm. But if all of them get given, like the same with the penalties, if they're off the line, if they're all off the line, even no matter how minuscule the margins are, then that's fine. Just keep doing it. It's just when Alisson's off the line, when he saved the penalty in the last minute or to anyone, and then it doesn't really matter. That's when the issue comes, and when
that's when there needs to be uproar over it. But for me, I mean, I was watching on Amazon Prime. I don't know if you guys were watching on Prime as well, or if you had the commentary on. My goodness, Ali McCoist was doing my head, and he was really, really crying it in over that decision, wasn't he?
I didn't listen to any commentaries of the game because they all do me head in.
And this one would very much have done your head in, Owen, and believe me, it was. I couldn't believe just how much one co-commentator could moan about one decision. I've never heard anything like it. Can you imagine it? If it was Man United who got that penalty, I can imagine he'd have kept his mouth a lot more shut.
You know what, though? It's always like that. Like, Man United got a penalty today. After the final whistle had already been blown. Like, okay, it was a penalty, but they've blown the final whistle. And now the narrative for that is they got a penalty in the 100th minute. No, they took the penalty in the 100th minute or the first minute of like a new game that started because they'd blown the final whistle. And the commentators afterwards, this is on BT, this one, were saying, what an advert for the Premier League. It's like, that's ridiculous. If that's the other way around, yous aren't like pairing about like the football that's been on display. You're talking about the shambolic decision. And Ali McCoist, my favourite.
Oh God.
My favourite thing he said today was when he the ball flashed across the goal and Rodriguez met it first time and he side foots it, and Ali McCoist is trying to like basically tell Rodriguez
how to kick a ball.
Multiple Champions League winner, how to strike a ball. Like, oh, right, thanks, Ali. The best. He's an absolute gobshite. He was saying last year, I can't remember the game, but he was an Amazon covered game. Obviously, he was saying he'd like to see Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin tried as a partnership, and they'd already played 20 games. The last 20 games before that match as a partnership. It's just
that was the Southampton game or something, weren't it?
Yeah, the biggest travesty, well, not the biggest, but one of the biggest travesties of the fans not being in grounds is Amazon used to have an option where you could watch it without the commentators and just hear the stadium. I watched the 5-2 derby like that, and it did not make a difference.
I just sit down anyway.
Well, it used to be you could just watch and hear the crowd, but no commentators. But now, because there's no one in, they're putting the fake crowd noise in, that option on your remote has turned into crowd noise on and off, and you've got to have the commentators. And he was shocked, and he was so. I mean, that penalty, it should and it shouldn't be, shouldn't it? Because that rule is a shambles. It's so that shouldn't be a penalty. That like you've got to say that
penalty if the powers that be have the thinking caps on, but by the current rules, it is.
It's difficult though because by the current rules, it is. That's why it should be a penalty because they've given penalties like the one Liverpool got against Leeds where it ricocheted off the lad's knee and the Man United one with off Lindelof's arms like. They're ridiculous. They shouldn't be penalties. Ours shouldn't have been a penalty. But then on the other hand, it's like I do like the thinking of getting away from the referee's discretion because they can't be trusted. If it's a penalty, it's a penalty. You can't, or rather, it's a handball. It's a ball. If you have to be uber harsh with the handballs, but that takes away the decision from the Chris Cavanas and the John Mosses and all those other muppets who have got basically their own agendas and got their own way of looking at things, then I'm all for it. But it doesn't feel right because if we'd have conceded a penalty and lost the game like that penalty, I'd be going nuts and frankly,
absolutely.
I don't blame the Palace fans for it, even though they got one last week.
And it's one of them. I do think it is good now that we are starting to see the referees run over to the screen a bit more.
I knew he was going to give the penalty, by the way.
Yeah. I didn't hear much of the commentary because I had Paul here watching it with me, and he doesn't let you listen to anything other than him anyway. But I was saying he was convinced it wasn't going to be a penalty. I was like, no, it will be. It's like, because I knew from the Maguire one, as much as Lindelof one, excuse me, as much as anything, was like, that's going to be a penalty because that other one was, and it's his hand. It's incredibly harsh, but by the new rules, that's going to be a penalty. So I knew straight away as well.
Yeah, so as soon as he went to the screen, I thought he's going to give it.
I was like, we've been shafted by VAR before. I'm not counting me chickens.
Yeah.
I don't actually think we would have been shafted if he didn't give it. I wouldn't have complained. It's just the way it is. I knew we would give it.
The rules are it should be. Unfortunately, they're the rules because the rules shouldn't be those rules. But it is what it is, and we get the penalty anyway. We'll leave it at that anyway. I mean, we've got the win, 3 points in the bag, 9 points out of 9, top of the table.
Calvert-Lewin's top goal scorer.
Calvert-Lewin's the top goal scorer.
His goal against Tottenham was class, and every goal he's had since his other 4 goals have been the worst scruff goals ever. This one was slightly better, but the keeper's awful for it, but I don't care. They all count. He's top goal scorer tonight, and, England plays maybe next week. Don't give a shit if he plays, but
the least he deserves so far.
Yeah, don't care if he never kicks a ball for England, but it'd be nice for him because he's earned it, hasn't he?
More than earned it. Let's be honest, he's in better form than any other English striker at the moment, so why the hell not?
Yeah, that's if you count Harry Kane as a centre midfielder now.
Yeah.
Because Mourinho.
Yeah, well, Harry Kane takes the corners. We need someone in the box then, don't we? So there you go, guys. So let us know your opinions on the Crystal Palace win. Drop us a comment below. Give this video a like, subscribe for more content. And until next time, thank you for watching on the Toffee Blues.